We eventually left there. We were only there about 6 months, and we came back to Chicago. My dad could not find a job, just could not find a job. And the business, without Uncle Tio there, began to go down. Came back to Chicago and encountered racism for the first time, in that we always lived with my grandparents. And so living with my grandmother, we were on the south side of Chicago, and we owned our property, so we didn't worry about renting from anyone. But my mom and dad decided, since we're coming back to Chicago, we need to strike out on our own. So we went looking for an apartment. My mom and I went. And we would go to, because my mom also wanted me in a different school and not go back to the same high school that I'd gone to. So we went looking for an apartment, and in the neighborhood that we wanted, for the first time, the closing of doors, and no, we don't rent to you people. We don't rent to you people. So I realized that in Chicago for the first time, that there was areas of Chicago where, well, we just didn't live. Now, I'm not saying that I hadn't experienced racism before, but I didn't really. Our parents were extremely protective. And when we left Chicago, we went primarily 2 places on transportation, on the train or by car, to go visit my grandmother in Detroit or visit my great-grandparents in Centerville, Tennessee, which is where my folks were from. When we went to Detroit, I was so excited because, boy, we were going to be on the train, and we'd get to eat in the Pullman car, and they had the white tablecloths and the silver vase with the roses and the Pullman porters, and it was just wonderful. When we went south, I'd say, oh, and we get to eat, and my mother would say, oh, no. The food on that train is just not very good. So Mother has packed a wonderful lunch for us, and you're just going to love it. And she'd have a big, big, big box with fried chicken and deviled eggs and cream cheese sandwiches. Don't even ask me about cream cheese sandwiches, and pound cake and all sorts of stuff. And she'd say, isn't this good? Isn't this wonderful? Aren't you glad that we aren't back there eating that awful food? And then if we were in a car, I knew that they had friends all the way from Chicago to Centerville, Tennessee, that we'd stop, because you didn't stop for anything other than gasoline. And my mother would make sure that when we stopped, did you go to the bathroom? Did you? Because once we get to Kentucky, it's going to be a little bit harder until we get to so-and-so's house. So you had that experience, but my parents never told me why. It was always, if I did it, they would say, oh, the bathrooms there are so dirty. We don't want to go to those bathrooms. They're so dirty. So they sheltered me from a whole lot. So when I went into this school, which is the same neighborhood that Michelle Obama grows up in, which is interesting, whites are beginning to move out. And within the semester I was there, that school went from about 3/4 white to a handful. The day that I left that school, there were so many kids in the office getting transfers that it was just a crowded mess. Experienced some interesting things in the classroom. And that is a music teacher that we had. Miss O'Reilly said, she would say things in the, she was the music teacher, and she would say things like, well, we used to do this at Hirsch High School. We used to do this at Hirsch High School until the foreigners moved in. So one day I raised my hand and I said, Miss O'Reilly, who are the foreigners you talk about? And she said, Miss Hornbeak, your people. And I said, Miss O'Reilly, my people have been in this country many, many, many generations. We are not the foreigners. And Miss O'Reilly, Miss O'Reilly, when did your people come to the United States? And at that point she said, Miss Hornbeak, you may leave the class and go to the principal's office. And I said, Miss O'Reilly, do you really want me to go to the principal's office and tell him about the foreigners in our school? And at that point she said, Miss Hornbeak, you may sit down and stop disturbing the class and stop talking to Mr. Offutt, who was the boy who was next to me that I really was talking to because I wanted to go to prom with him. But that's another story. But so I left there and I went back to my original school, which was Inglewood High School. To put that in a historical perspective, Inglewood High School, are you familiar with the story Raisin in the Sun? That's where Lorraine Hansberry graduated from Inglewood High School. So that's the neighborhood that she's talking about. I went back to Inglewood High School, which is again the all-black school, graduated from there. It was interesting to be back, comfortable to be back. Went to Illinois, went to Northern Illinois my freshman year. That was an interesting experience because there were very few black kids at Northern Illinois. And you've heard that expression, why do all the black kids sit together in the cafeteria? Well, all the black kids were pretty much sitting together, and we did. We spent a lot of time together. There were probably maybe 125 black kids in a school of about 8,000. So we knew each other. We knew each other very, very well.